Diane. Now, councillors, we're in confidential at the moment, and after the discussion between councillors, it was decided to take this section out of confidential, put it into the public area. And would someone like to move?
I'll move it.
Move out of confidential.
You can
Second it by all those in favour? Technical issue there that's been resolved. Right, we're now in open meeting. Thanks, Tom. Now, move across now to TC. TC, could you explain to councillors and the public who are watching this, the process from here and how we handle this section, which is the deliberations?
Thank you, Worship and Councillors. So what we will be going through now is that Carol Jackson, the Transportation Manager, will be running through a spreadsheet broken down in terms of submission received and information previously held by Council. It's an opportunity for councillors to deliberate on those and also take into consideration the verbal submissions that have been received as well. You will go through an opportunity to make recommendations for change or for leaving things as they may be. The recommendations themselves will then be collated and will be brought back to a council meeting in terms of being an amended register under the appendix to the traffic speed bylaw that we have for council. So at the moment it's just doing the recommendations, which will then go to a full meeting of council to adopt the amended register, and that will be at the December meeting of council.
Thanks, DC. Any questions there? We all understand the process, I think. I think the time now is to come to open it up, and Carl, would you like to start moving us through the various sections, various roads, so that they can be deliberated on?
Right, so I'm just sharing my screen here so that everybody can see what we're talking about.
Excuse me, Chair. Is there anyone pull those curtains over there for us, please? Let's go.
Can't see it.
Oh, not too sure what ones it is.
That's good. Thank you.
Does that help you?
Yes.
I don't think it's okay.
Yeah, that one feel right, isn't it?
You know, I think those ones are okay.
Oh, again, like grey.
Do you not see it?
It puts a lot of grey.
Okay.
Are we just going to work through from this list?
I assume so.
Because I brought that one up first and it doesn't start.
I think it's here in the wrong screen.
Is it just frozen? Captain Matthew out there. Frozen.
Apologies for technology, frozen screen, we'll have to reboot.
Excuse me, will this start at under our documentation here, under the Cogans Road, Mertons Road, follow through, or are we going to go up to this one at the top?
No, there's a separate spreadsheet that Carl's looking through, grouped by area, so you'll see it on the screen shortly.
Councillor
Oh,
Kennedy.
These ones are grouped by area, but that's the one at the top.
That's the assessment.
Do you want one of those?
No, it's quite loud, isn't it?
Oh,
It just would have been handy as we're looking at it, because under this, you know, we can actually then also visually see the submitters as well and the reasoning.
You might find Cal's.
Paper shovel.
that's brilliant. Thanks for that, Carl.
Okay, so as you can see, the ultimate list has been broken down into various local areas, starting at the top with the 3 mile area, which encompasses Cogans Road, Mersons Road and Providence Drive. So the proposed speed to be set on those was 60 kilometres an hour. That was a mixture of safe advisory speeds of 80 and 60. For contiguity, at 60. Given that that area is filling out faster now, becoming more developed.
Councillors, you've heard the submissions in relation to those 3 areas. Are there any comments you wish to raise at this time?
I think the submission strongly worded their preference for the 60k change, and I'm in agreement with that.
Would you like a separate move on a single one of those?
I think the clarity to ensure that we're conveying it to the register, separate resolutions, each section, as we improve the rows together.
Yep.
But that'd be fine.
Okay. Jane, would you like to?
I'll move that we go with the proposed speed for those 3 roads in the 3 mile area.
Do I have a second? Councillor Kennedy, all those in favour?
Right.
Okay. Thanks, Carl.
Next on the list, we have the Arahura area. So we've got Arahura Valley Road, Duffers Creek Road, Fox Road, German Road, Gillen's Gully, Humphreys Gully, Old Christchurch Road, and 1 mile Vine Road. So that covers the valley up both sides of the Arahura River. Presently we have the south side intersecting with the Blue Spur Road, which is already at a reduced speed, I believe it's down to 70 or 80. So to keep that in context, propose both sides, and that encompasses that Old Christchurch Road. So the section of Old Christchurch Road, the majority of it we're looking at 80. That takes into account the seal extension and takes that 80 to Duffers Creek Road, and then from Duffers Creek Road through to that whole 73 will drop down to 60. Largely because that area is also shared with cyclists as well, so it's cycleway.
Perhaps we can discuss the Old Christchurch Road first, because we've had a number of submitters this morning. And I'll open it now for discussion as to your views and the views of our submitters. Councillor Cogan, do you have a preference of view?
Yeah, I'd just like to know a little bit more around, because there tended to be a preference with some of the submitters, Carl, around 60 kilometres rather than the 80. 80 kilometres on the main area, and that would be, I guess, also including, well, currently it's unsealed, isn't it?
Currently, so
Yes. So I think that we definitely should consider the 60 kilometre area. I know that with that road up there as well, it is particularly narrow. And I would have to agree that at 80k, if you've got cars going in both in one direction to the other, it does make it a very narrow gap between the two vehicles. And also the concern that I have now is once the tar ceiling goes in, up there on the old West Coast Road as well, we'll have two concerns. One is that actually going to encourage that road to turn into a state highway instead of our original state highway, which is, and then the residents of Kamara and coming down the Serpentine Hill is all going to be missed out because people will look at it as a shorter trip. But, you know, I'm worried that then they'll use it as a state highway and increase their speed, and 100k and also 80k, regardless of whether it's tar sealed or not tar sealed, I think, is iffy. So, I would like to consider the
60k.
60 kilometre.
Councillor Martin.
60k from start to finish.
Councillor Kennedy.
Yeah, I'd like to divert to the residents. I suppose there was some talk of maybe 80k on the sealed and 60k on the unsealed road. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
Councillor Hartshorn.
Yeah, the same as Councillor Kennedy, there was talk of 80 thinking that that road will be sealed in the near future. And 60 definitely in the lower area. Yeah.
Councillor Neal.
Yes, I'm comfortable, I think, with the 80k on the sealed road, apart from that first part, so that we got past the Marai, because there are often a lot of cars parked right on the side of the road around there. So I would like to see that first part go back to the 60k.
There might be a challenge with that in the length. The 60 may not be an acceptable length.
How long does it have to be?
I believe there is a distance of about
A kilometre? So it could potentially be the 1 kilometre.
Well, we might be able to do that.
Yeah.
Councillor Lee.
Actually, I'd like just to leave it the way it is at the moment and just wait until the road is been completely upgraded. That's just, which one are we talking about? The old Christchurch Road, isn't it?
Just the old Christchurch Road.
Yeah.
That's pretty.
Yeah. So that's, I understand it's going to be widened. Yeah.
So the seal extension will be widened to 6.5 metres.
Yeah.
So that's about half a metre wider than the existing seal that's there at the moment on some existing seal section.
Mm-hmm.
So will be wider than what's there in terms of the gravel section.
Yeah.
We won't be designing it specifically for high speed.
Okay.
So we'll keep it in mind as well in design.
Yeah. Well, I'd stick with the 80k yourself.
Thanks, Councillor Dawson. In looking at the submissions that were made by the various people, some of them have lived there for many years. Most of them reflected the fact that there were regular accidents, that it creates a shortcut that GPS picks up and will ultimately become the main road between Hokitika and that area, which would be very bad for Kamara.
Sorry, just on that, Your Worship, do we know that if, let's say, we put it to 80, will that have an effect on Siri for sending people that way instantly? The point that he made about the shortcut and the GPS picking it up. If we put it to 80 and put it on GPS, will that stop people?
Don't know.
Going through there?
My personal preference is to drop it to 60 from right at the beginning to right at the end. That's just my personal preference, and it appears to be certainly the preference of Deborah Wagner, who's been there for 14 years and comes from a farming background. It appeared to be the preference from the Bradley family. The submitters You know, I'm just conscious of the submissions that they made. And status quo, Harry Collett would be delighted. He gets a lot of work out that way. Cars running off the road and accidents, but Jenny.
So through the chair, yeah, like, and I can actually support your relevance around the 60k all the way through, because once again, and I still bring it back to the fact that, you know, these guys out there, and I mean, I've driven up that road many times over the years because my mother used to do the mail run actually up that way too. So I have a reasonable amount of experience with it. And I'm just really concerned that it will be, once it's tar sealed, which is going to be great, but I don't want to see it become seen as a state highway. And if we can restrict the speed limit, then hopefully that will encourage people that, yes, you can make a nice scenic inland trip into town, but we encourage you to stick to the main state highways that are looked after by NZTA and maintained by NZTA, and you can go at your 100k.
So around the table we have status quo, we have 80k, and we have 60k. There's very good reasons for all of them. The only way that I can go forward as chairman is to suggest that someone moves a resolution, we test the table. If someone would like to move something, Councillor Martin.
I think I'll deal to the unsealed part first, and I'll move that the unsealed portions, what one's that, Carl? Can you just highlight that?
Well, just consider at the moment that the intention is that all of it will be sealed before the next financial year. So this season.
Oh, the entire road? I thought has it changed now?
Oh, yeah.
The entire
When
road.
did that change?
So that's the
Last meeting.
Old Christchurch Road shovel ready project.
Yeah. Oh, the Capital Works. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, well, that's not going to deal with the issue then, so let's.
So as a sealed road, 80 would be more appropriate for the speed through there, given the geometry of the road, what we're widening it to. There's not a lot of evidence to say that the 60 would be a better speed. It will certainly be difficult in terms of compliance and issues. So the other consideration is that it's got to be something that we can actually reasonably enforce. Some could argue that 60 is perhaps a little bit slow.
Would 70 for the entire speed, and I know you've got commentary around needing NZTA approval for 70, but you've got residents wanting 60. You've got recommendations from transport teams suggesting 80. Seems like a happy median if you said 70.
There is a significant problem at the Marae. You know, the Marae's becoming really popular, and so safety out there is needs to be considered.
Just an aside to that, 70s, while they are excluded at the moment unless NZTA have provided approval for their use, in next year, from the start of the year, so I'm not entirely sure exactly the timing, they will be made available again. There was a recent paper released by the agency to say that speed has actually been one that has been requested to be included back into our selection. So it is possible that we could look at that 70 at this stage and go in the middle of the road if it's more palatable.
Through the chair, there's also that perception as well, and of course, in amongst making all these decisions today, we have to factor in the fact that, you know, police have to monitor these roads that we're saying we're going to change. Now, if I was a driver and I thought that I could get to Hokitika quicker, supposedly with Siri, and it was saying an 80k speed limit, but so I'd be thinking, oh, well, I'll try to, because it's an inland road, tap it up to 100 anyhow, and it defeats the purpose. But if you said actually, and perhaps 70 might be a good medium, then I think that's also a perception with people too, that you know that you genuinely have to drive that little bit slower to go around that way. I'm just conscious that I think at 80k we're still opening it up to being seen as a state highway, and I just don't want to see that happen. It's not like we're talking about a non-accident area, we're talking about a high accident area. Those farmers out there have dealt with it for many years, and I think that we have to protect those people out there in the communities. So
Just through the chair, sorry, I just think that if you're going to be, upgrading a road, widening it and tar sealing it, and getting down to 60k an hour, I think it just defeats its purpose. It's a perfectly good road, and they going to widen it, make a good road. Yeah.
Well, so I'd like to move. We have 3 choices: status quo. Well, actually, we have 4: status quo,
I'd
80,
like to move.
70, and 60. Let's test the market.
I'd move that we change that one to 70k, subject to being allowed to do that in the new year.
And in the event of that
And if
being
that doesn't happen, I'll move that following on from the submissions, it goes to 60k for the full length.
do I have a second? Councillor Cogan, thank you. Now we've got a mover and a seconder. To be clear, the resolution is to reduce the speed limit from start to finish of the old Christchurch Road to 70 kilometres per hour, if that can be approved by NZTA, and if it can't, to 60. All those in favour, please raise your hand. All those against, please raise your hand. Could you record Councillor Davidson, Councillor Archibald and Councillor Kennedy have a no vote on that? Thank you for that. We'll move on to the next block outside of that when things go.
Your Worship, can we just clarify the Marae section? Because I'm sure I recall when this went out, Francois had a comment around the Marae and needing to really reduce the speed there. Even that stretch, maybe it's that kilometre, and maybe we can look at that, because I'd hate for that to get caught up in thinking we've done the right thing and then we haven't actually addressed the Marae entrance exit, which if you're travelling at 70 past is really no different to 80, which I think it is at the moment. Signposted for 80. So.
Your view on whether
so
that can be done?
The signposting for the 80 comes into play just at the top of the hill. Yeah. So generally, you're coming out of a 100k zone into an 80k zone. Often people coast once they go through the sign rather than you go
exactly.
Speed in the sign. That said, if we go to 70, then we can make that from the bottom of the hill all the way out. So it actually extends that, changes that 80k zone slightly. So it actually puts it at the bottom of the hill. So it won't be a problem for going up the hill, but it will be going slow coming the other way. So
Do you view on that, Councillor Mains?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it's still an appropriate speed. I'm probably thinking about it the same as I think about schools and the like. 50 to me seems, just in front of a building, no matter where it is, if it's got a large volume of people arriving, parking, we have a big event there, parking both sides of the berm. 50, I think, for that K would be good, and then hit 70, carry on.
Is that something that can be done?
it's something we would have to investigate a bit further on that one just to make sure that it is going to work.
I think that would capture the essence, because that will give you time to talk to Francois and his team as well, before the next council meeting, before the adoption of the schedule, doing just an action to ensure that the safety considerations have been captured, and that the residents of Aotearoa and, the Runanga are happy with that outside the Marae, because I know Francois did pass comment on it. I'd hate for it to be missed.
So your suggestion is to liaise with Ngāti Waewae in relation to a 50k stretch which Carl will investigate and bring back to the next council meeting before we adopt. Is that where it is?
Happy with that.
I'm sorry, just on that too, is it possible when investigating, Charlie Cowley's saying about similar signage that's at the Kamara end of the old Christchurch Road and Turn and Bay and Turn Back being placed at the State Highway Arahua end? I don't know.
Having a 50k sign there would help.
Yeah, I think it would, that would definitely help.
Yeah,
Even though that's only for a K, but it would have a psychological.
it's still a perception,
Yeah.
that you've got to go slow.
Okay, so next grouping.
Cool.
Okay, and for those of us that have trouble reading the fine print, if you could just,
So they're still in that same grouping.
So effectively, that leaves us, we'll stay on the old Christchurch Road side of things. That gives us Duffers Creek Road, Fox Road, so Duffers Creek Road and Fox Road, proposing to be 60. Those are still going to be unsealed roads, so they won't get any improvements as a result of the work that we're doing.
do any councillors have any issues with those two roads being set at 60?
Sorry, just a question through the chair. So Rafferty's Creek to Waimea Bridge, are we talking about these roads being in
No,
this?
it's a different area, isn't it?
Not quite yet, we'll get to that next.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the roads that feed off the old Christchurch Road at the moment, which is Fox Road, Duffers Creek Road.
okay, so we're talking about the proposed speed there to 60,
Proposed speed for those is to be 60.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
right.
If there's no disagreement, would someone like to move?
So just one question. So is that going to work in people's minds when they're going from 70 to 60? If we go with the 70k on the old Christchurch Road? Or would we rather have that staying at 70 just to be consistent? Or quite happy to go down to 60?
Generally gravel roads, the trend is to have them lower down to 60.
Mover and Jenny, do I have a second? Councillor Martin, those in favour?
Yeah.
Those against? Thank you. Next one, Carol.
So, next, we come back, so we're still in the Arahura area. So we're looking at the south side of the Arahura River, which encompasses the Arahura Valley Road, German Road, Humphreys Gully Road,
So we have
the Old Christchurch, I've got that, and one more Long Road, sorry.
and they're all proposed to go to 60.
So we've proposed those to go to 80. So those are all sealed roads at the moment.
Yep.
With the exception of Gillam's Gully, sorry. No, that's correct.
They're all sealed.
All sealed, all proposed to go from 100 to 80.
So what, through the chair, why are we going to 80 instead of the 70? Aren't they still reasonably built up with housing and?
No, those areas are a bit lower developed. But
Oh, okay.
Again, the 80 was used because 70 was previously excluded from consideration at the time that this was done.
So would it be more consistent to go to 70 with these ones as well?
Right, so the road through Blue Spur is a mixture of, goes from 70 to 80 through the developed area, through the top of Blue Spur and back down towards Arahura Valley, so 80 would be more consistent with that section of road.
Wonder if we're going to upset a lot of people.
Going to 80 or going to 70?
I don't know. I get the rationale around Old Christchurch Road. I'm just, these stretches of road, they're talking about the main roundabout by the bridge, turning off there, going right. That's pretty sparsely populated in terms of residential housing along it. I don't know whether traffic stats actually come into this, but I was almost leaning towards, like every one of these roads, I'm visualising driving it on a average day in average conditions, you know, not a thunderstorm, not when the river's in flood. You know, is it safe to do 100? Probably. So
Two trucks going past each other.
with two trucks, well, you'd slow down. But is 70 acceptable for those roads? Well, probably not. I'd find
I'm
that,
happy for them all to stay at 80.
you know, even 80, I feel
To 80.
like we're going to just be, there's going to be a few people heavy on the pedal.
I think
No.
even if they're at 100, that there'll still be those.
Yeah, there'll still be
that-
people speedy.
I suppose me personally, like I'd like to see consistency across the whole Western roading network as much as possible. And I see these kind of narrow country roads sealed, I see them as 80k, there's plenty, and unsealed gravel roads is 60. That's kind of my feeling, but it's up to, I mean, we're doing all these, this is what's going on, it's people that are driving it, there's a bit of personal responsibility involved as well. But 80 kilometres an hour, I don't have an issue with.
Someone like to move in that area?
So
Moved Councillor Kennedy, do I second it? Councillor Neal, all those in favour of maintaining those roads or having those roads at 80k, please raise your hand. Those against?
It doesn't need, it's all good.
Yeah, of course, please record Councillor Barnum against.
Doesn't matter. That's fine, but
Carl, on to the next one.
Scully, is it?
So
Gillam's Gully?
So, yes, so we've got, next area will be Gillam's Gully, Ballarat Rise, Callaghan's Road, Loop Line Road, Stafford Loop Road, and Stafford Road. So group those into the Gold's Road area. So I know we've had some feedback on the Stafford Loop Road.
So the Stafford Loop Road at present time is 100k.
All of those roads presently are 100k. So it's a mixture of sealed, unsealed, narrow, windy, quite a combination of roads. So it was an interesting challenge to find a speed that was likely to suit all.
I think the submission that was made this morning in relation to protecting the Stafford Township at a lower speed was very relevant. And some consistency with the rest, as Councillor Kennedy says, it makes quite a lot of sense. What does that mean, councillors?
So Stafford Loop's all sealed, isn't it?
No, there's an unsealed section in there.
Is it unsealed? Is it likely to be sealed?
It was on the list for sealing a number of years ago, but got deferred for another road. It's not presently on the list to be sealed. That said, we do have some other dynamics in that area. We have the dock campground at Goldsborough, which also generates quite an amount of foot traffic along that section of road through the, as people install the tunnels and the tracks in that area. So that's the other consideration.
Yeah.
So,
I'm visualising turning off the State Highway onto Stafford Road, off, go to Havel Drive, right over the track. 60 to me feels too slow. 80, if you're going off the rationale that Ryan articulated before, would, to me, feel more of a realistic speed. It's an okay road. There's there's a couple of narrow bridges on that, but I don't know where Havel Road is. Is that 100?
Havel Road, we have put down.
Yeah, so that's what I meant, so okay, just focus on what we can control at the moment. Then it would be that 80, 60, 80 sealed, 60 unsealed, and then deal with the township of making the township of Stafford 60. And those roads up the cemetery and that should be at a crawl, not, 80. What are they, that? Not slip, yeah, it's got a name, like a Scandinavia. Yeah. It's all that area, isn't it? That old township of Stafford.
So listening around the table, someone like to propose,
I agree with what Latham said.
Latham, would you like to propose that so that we can understand clearly?
So Carl, yes, I can, Your Worship. Can you just clarify which ones of these 5 are sealed? In Ballarat, this is confusing. The Ballarat Rise leads to a dead end road, so hooning up there at 100 is probably not even practical anyway.
No.
You're not probably doing 100, so
The mean speed on that is less than 60.
just 60 is fine for that.
60 is fine.
60 is fine for that. Move that. What's Callaghan's? Where's Callaghan's?
Callaghan's is out towards the, about halfway between Goldspur and the Woodline Reservoir.
And is that unsealed?
That's an unsealed road.
So that's 60,
That's 60.
just so we're clear.
Yeah.
Loop Line Road
Loop Line Road is very close to that as well, that again is 60.
and unsealed.
Unsealed. Yep.
Stafford, now the Stafford Loop is one that
So
Charlie's.
Stafford Loop is a mix. As you can see, there's a number of different speeds there. There's your mean speed sort of 20 to 74. It's quite variable depending on where you're at on it. And safe advisory speeds are 80 to 60.
So if it's a sealed section, I think 80, and if it's an unsealed, it's 60, rather than 60 for the whole way.
Okay.
Apart from the where it's
And
built
could-
up.
So
Could we also just add in the Stafford?
In the Stafford Township,
Yeah.
from the 2 rivers or 2 creeks or streams, or
Rafferty's and.
Yep.
Rafferty's to
they
Waimea.
define a 60-kilometre speed limit.
Does that feel?
Sorry, that last bit.
Rafferty's
This
Creek.
is the old township of Stafford, and the submitted Charlie wanting town, and we actually got that long letter back in August, didn't we, about reducing the speed in the township only.
It's very narrow and wide. It is.
from the turn off
It's kind of.
through to Waimea Creek,
Yeah.
that road is very narrow, very
Yeah.
tiny. So presumably that whole section could be a lower
Yep.
speed in general. What was the proposal on the front?
Rafferty's Creek to Waimea Bridge, does that sound right to you?
Waimea Bridge is the other side of Stafford Township. It is the side, yeah.
Yep, so 60 for that, for defined by those 2 areas.
Are you suggesting then, Carl, that perhaps what could work is from the highway where you come across the railway line all the way through?
Well, yes, that would tie in with the Stafford Road, would tie in with Gilligan's Gully, Ballarat Rise, and those roads as well, so that loop around, when you come off the loop, Gilligan's Gully, Ballarat Rise, the proposal for that was for those to be 60.
So coming back,
So we could change that in terms of, if we adopt that as 60 and then change it beyond Waimea Creek to a mixture of 80 and 60 for sealed and unsealed road. What keeps that first area a bit more developed.
Yeah.
So you've got some wildlife farms through there.
Those houses on Stafford Road, though, are generally off the road. They're not, it's not like driving through a residential area. The houses are either up on the left on the rise, on the hill, or quite into farms, paddocks on the right. So 60 through there just feels like a speed that won't be abided by. And I'm not suggesting that's why we shouldn't do it. I'm just thinking
practical.
80 on that bit.
Yeah, I agree with the 80.
I agree too, and probably in the future that little bit might get sealed in between.
A lot of the feedback from the residents in those areas was favouring 60.
Right, so, let's now work out roughly where we are. Nathan, do you want to?
So I just want to clarify something because I think it's a good, back to Ryan's initial comments were around if it's sealed and it's a rural road, 80, and if it's unsealed and it's a rural road, 60. But then we probably need to layer on the population that road services or the bends, the wines, the gradient and all that. So if you're recommending and the resident supports 60, then I think I'm barking up the wrong tree. So, I'd happily go along with that. I just don't want to be imposing something that won't be supported or actually done in reality.
It's not as simple as sealed versus unsealed. Again,
I realise that.
We do have a number of sealed roads that are
Like this.
in some places barely 1.5 lanes.
Yeah.
Some of them are only 1 lane.
That's right.
Some of them are quite high up how they come about. So it's just unsealed, an unsealed road that's been sealed without any improvements made to it. So there's a bit of a legacy there that we're stuck with the side of bring into the information.
Okay, from a practical point of view, where are we?
Yeah, I just wanted to, when you say that the people out there support it to 60, is that what the submitters are saying?
Yes, there was.
They're all saying that?
There was, yes. There was a couple that, I think there was 1 or 2 that weren't too happy with it, but in general, there's other comments. I mean, people, there's other factors in play as well, with the use of the road in the area. The various modes of transport, not necessarily just vehicles.
They're a different group from the Cockatoo Quarterangi, that's for sure.
Councillor Davis, do you have a suggestion?
Yeah,
How we
yeah.
can knock this over?
I reckon we should have it at 80k around the loop on the Townsville Road. It seems okay, and then the status quo. What you got up there?
I want to put a recommendation in to bring it back to the 60k. And listen to what, we've given the opportunity for these submitters to put in, and what better than to have that feedback from people that are actually living out there and have far more of an understanding of it than what we do, intermittently driving up down.
So I'm just reading one of the submissions now, saying disagree because the reduction of speed limit to 60k for the entire length of Stafford and Stafford Loop Road. Stafford Road doesn't need any reduction, it is a relatively straight road, you're saying, Nathan. The Loop Road for its majority is a relatively straight road, does not need a reduction other than between Waimea Creek and the end of the gravel section. These roads in general are suitable but in good carriageway quality. The open speed limit of 100k is suitable, and they've lived in Stafford for 20 years and do not recall any crash or injury on those roads.
Thank you.
So I mean, even 80k, they're saying 100k
that's
actually.
right.
The 80k, yeah.
80k is a compromise, I think.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we, on these 5 that on the sealed roads, they'll be 80k, bar the township of Stafford, where a 60k limit is put in place, and on the unsealed roads, the speed limit be set as.
I'd like to second that.
For consistency.
And that Ballarat rise is 62, isn't it? We dealt with that.
Yeah, that's unsealed.
No, that's
Okay.
sealed.
We've got a mover and a second here. All those in favour, please raise your hands. If you're against, please raise your hands. Thank you. Next one, please, Senator Carl.
let's drop down the list to Fox. So we had 3 changes there. So we had Cook Flat Road, Gillespie's Beach Road, and the Lake Matheson Road. So 3 different limits there. So the Cook Flat Road was from Lake Matheson Road to the end where it meets on to Gillespie's Beach Road. The proposal there was to go to 80. Presently it's 100. Safe advisory was 80. The mean speed's even lower again, it's 55 to 64. Gillespie's Beach Road, again, that's the unsealed road. So that was proposed to be 60 for the entire length. And Lake Matheson Road actually took down to a lower level based on the mean speed travelled on that road. Again, the safe advisory was 80, but because it feeds into a car park where people can actually walk on the road to the facilities there as well, I think it was a better mix to roll that down a little bit further and take into consideration what people you do.
Councillors, can we start with the southern councillors first?
Look, I'll jump in here. Gillespie's Beach Road from 100 to 80 to continue it all the way through, like we see consistency is fine. I'm happy with that. To be 80 till you hit the unsealed road, with 60 to Gillespie's, that's totally fine with me. The Lake Matheson Road, the Cook Road from 80 to, it's a total waste of time, and I think it should be rooted. Like, what's the point in having, I'm talking about 3 kilometres of beautiful straight road to go 40k. I don't see any point at all. It's a waste of 2 signs. That's my opinion.
Councillor Hartram.
I'd have to agree. You've got the Cook Flat Road, you've got new cycleway footpath and all that going on along there now. 40k is, it should be just back at 80k. I can't see any reason 40k in a season they're going to be going that slow that you're going to pull over and stop on the side of the road and take photos and so I'd like to see go back to 80.
Any other councillors have a view?
Just recalling our trip down there and imagining driving 40.
Still down there.
Yeah. but I hear what you're saying about coming out of the car park at the end and then it goes on, carries on that gravel road and stuff. But 80 feels like a good speed.
Can I suggest then that Councillor Kennedy proposes resolution?
Sorry, just one thing through the chair. Were there any submitters that was any more for or against for any of those restrictions down there?
There was a suggestion that the Lake Matheson Road, the dog area there was too low.
Right.
They recommend 60
Okay.
rather than 40.
Yeah, I think when you get to the car park and speed up, it'll take care of itself. So I'd like to move that we make the Cook Flat Road 80 kilometres an hour from Lake Matheson to the start of Gillespie's Beach Road, the unsealed section 60, and Lake Matheson Road to be set at 80 for consistency.
Do I have a second? Councillor Hartshaw, so the 2 southern councillors have moved and seconded. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Thank you. Next slide, please, Carl.
Going into Fran's next on the list. So basically we're looking at all of the streets within the Fran's township, with the exception of the state highway. Reducing those down to 30 kilometres an hour, so effectively creating a CBD speed environment.
Thanks, Carl. Open it for discussion. We'll start with the southern councillors. Councillor Hartshaw.
Not too sure on all these being dropped. I can see some benefit in Cron Street where it's crowded in the peak season, but then you need consistency in the town. I'm undecided on that really at the moment.
Councillor Kennedy.
Look, I'm very similar to councillor Hartshaw on, I can kind of see a need for it, but also in the same respect, like, all I see is money spent on signs when there's not a problem. However, for consistency's sake, I'd probably say we'd have to do the whole town if we're going to do the back streets, not just a couple of sections, you know, so, yeah. I definitely understand what you're saying.
I definitely know motels and that, and that outside the, around the hot pools and from Rainforest down, even Alice May down, like in the summer, people just walk across the roads diagonally. Camper vans there, they just come out of Rainforest, walk down and step out from behind a camper van on a car. So I can see, and I have had in the past, people wanting to drop it to 30. Yeah, but then you've still got, I know it's a different story, but the main road's still 50 and you get a rock truck going through at 50 or 60 miles k's an hour.
It's a bit scary.
Yeah.
Could be a few of those. Any other councillors wish to enter the debate? Councillor Cody.
Actually, and just to raise, it would be useful, Carl, if when we go to each of these sections, if first, when you bring it up, if you could just mention about, from the submitter's perspective, you know, where, how many were for and against with some of this roading, just so we have a little bit of an insight from them before we have that conversation around the table, because that's the question I'm going to ask you. What was it? What was the...
In that general area, I think it was around 50-50. There wasn't a lot that submitted specifically on those roads, but it was roughly 50-50 in terms of those changes. But keep in mind that the mean speed for those streets is less than 30. Now, this is not from any data that we've collected, traffic counters or anything like that. This data actually comes from GPS providers. So they interrogate the GPS units while you're driving them, without you knowing them, and determine what speeds people are actually driving on these roads, what that breakdown is. There's quite a lot of information that they glean from that. So it's a continual survey.
My car doesn't have a GPS, just so you know. My numbers aren't in there.
Good move. Would someone like to move?
Yeah, I think it's not going to inconvenience people. It's a small area that we're talking about, and I'm happy to move those streets, for instance, Franz Joseph, moved to 30k.
Moved, Councillor Neil, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Councillor Kennedy, thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
All those against? Thank you. Next lot, please.
Okay, so next on the list, go down to past. So we have a number of proposals there. Generally, we've got the past village itself, and Jackson's Sugar Road, ones that we're considering, as well as a number on the Haas Jackson's Bay Road. So if we look at the village in itself, we've got Marks Road, Ryan Place, Crooked Place, Puarika Road, Takitaki Road, Aurora Place, and Adair Road. So the proposal there is to set the village at 30 kilometres an hour. 40, I think, was a consideration that one submitter suggested. Both the past and present police officers down there have backed the proposal to go to 30. on based on what they've seen in the past and what goes on in that area, given that it is mainly a tourist destination, there's a lot of people on foot. So I'll get to the location and then walk around the village, find it quite useful to do that. And again, that 30 k's is consistent with the CBD type scenario, given that there's only a few streets there. So I thought it was better to adopt one rather than a couple.
Thanks, Carl. So we're talking about the Haas Township South Councillors, please.
I'm happy, it's very consistent with, we're talking about friends, you know, very consistent. The Jackson River Road, Unsealed Road, 60, happy. And just the, I talk about consistency, but that last piece of the Jackson's Bay Road, going to 60 and then 30, I'm happy with that also. I think it was.
Councillor Hartwell.
Yes, Your Worship, I'm happy with all those.
Other councillors wish to raise an issue there? Would someone like to move the recommendation?
Yes, so I'll move that we go with Carl's recommendations for the Haas.
So I have a second, Councillor Davidson. Those in favour? And those against? Thank you very much. Next one's Carl.
Okay, next on the list we have Open Ticker. So we've got pretty much CBD, a little extra one packed in there that dialect and passing on race criteria. So the CBD being the area from Hamden Street, bounded by Hamden Street to the north, Fitzherbert Street to the east, and everything between there and the sea, going to 30 kilometres an hour. And Racecourse Terrace just hasn't been presented, so one will present 50 in the suburban area.
Thanks, Carl. We'll go to the Oakatiga Ward councillors first. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Worship. I agree with the proposal. And I think it's good that we've extended it to Hampden Street too, which takes into consideration council's pensioner accommodation as well as the school, St Mary's. So rather than the old CBD boundary of Sewell. So I think I support that. And we've heard a lot of commentary around slowing traffic and we shouldn't do it because people already travel that speed. I think it's incentivising and sending the message around, Oakatiga is a place for everyone, not just cars. And the other issues that people raise around parking and calming, and although they are legitimate issues and they need to be dealt with in the CBD master plan, they should not be ignored. We're hearing those, we've heard those from the submitters today and in the past, and they need to be actioned, but this is one step in fixing, the bigger picture problems that the CBD actually has and making it a really vibrant and attractive place.
Councillor Davidson.
Yeah, no, I support it.
Do any other councillors have anything wish to raise in relation to that proposal?
I think it's a positive move, encourages walking, cycling and makes parents feel a lot more comfortable about their children being in the area and the tourists. It's great.
Yeah, and horses.
Do I have a mover then, Councillor Davidson?
Yeah, I'd like to move that.
And seconded, Councillor Martin. Are those in favour?
Yep.
Those against? Thank you, councillors. Next one, please.
Okay, the next one is the Capital Motorway. So that's Beach Road and Bolthead Road. Beach Road goes to the Freedom Camping area. Bolthead Road is the back road, follows the power line. Links back into the just south of Ross. Both gravel roads. The first part of Beach Road is sealed, but it is quite narrow. To exclude differing zones in that area, creating inconsistency, proposed 60s for both of those roads.
Thanks, Carl. We'll start with the Southern councillors, please, and Councillor Ryan.
Kangaroo, this is actually in the northern ward, but,
Is it?
yeah.
Where's the boundary?
Whiteheart.
You learn something every day.
Boldhead Road, you're right, it does follow the power lines, like right close to it. Go for a drive down there if you want. For consistency's sake, 60, I know there's a little bit of seal stuff, but I'm happy with 60.
Councillor Cogan in the northern.
Yeah, for both, I'm actually happy at the 60k. Yep.
Thank you.
Feedback was mixed on that.
Yeah.
And Councillor Neil?
Yeah, I can understand people going for 80k on Bolthead Road because it's so straight and all the rest of it, but happy to go with consistency for 60k. What's the other ones?
Yes, it gave consistency. I actually know somebody who rolled a car down there a couple of weeks ago.
What speed?
All those, it said 80, so they've done 80. Yeah, so.
Would one of the northern councils like to move the resolution to move the
Yes, I'm happy to
Councillor
move.
Cogan, do I have a second? Councillor Neil, thank you very much. Those in favour? Those against? Thank you. Next one, please.
So next on our list, we have Canary. So now there will be some hot debate on that one, I'm assuming. In general, we're looking at, if we look at the Canary School, and that will take into account Camp Street and St Albans Street. Those have been proposed at 30, and that's in line with changes that are coming regarding speed around schools. So it's encouraging for urban schools for speeds to be reduced to 30. For rural schools, speeds past the schools to be reduced to 60. So that will come into force next year. So if we do it now, we've got it ticked off the list. The Hokitika Canary Tramway, that was an area that we've had quite a lot of feedback from the locals on before the speed limit change, and there's quite a lot of support for it afterwards as well. Going down to 40, and that takes, it's actually a mixture of speeds, but at the moment we have a section there that's unsealed that links in the cycleway that is presently 30, but we're actually looking at changing the whole section. Just the Pine Tree to Canary Road. So 30 section will remain, which is unsealed. Discount that, but the sealed section will be 40. Likewise, Dents Road, which feeds off Canary Road, and Pine Tree Road, which goes both sides of Canary Road, not down to 40. Pine Tree Road, sorry, the opposite side, that doesn't link into the tramway, will go down to 60, present it's 70.
Thanks,
It's a bit of a mixture.
thanks, Carl. Let's look for the exceptions first. Councillor Martin.
The exceptions.
Yeah, we've got some recommendations there.
Yeah.
What don't you like?
What don't I like? I don't like 60 from the township to Shenandoah Dip. I think that's too slow. I think 70 would be more appropriate. However, I also don't like the 60 from there through past West Roads, past the new crossing, through the bridge area. I think that's too fast. So although the mean travel speed might be the same, I would encourage 70 from the town to what's currently the 70 change, and then actually a reduction to 50. Because that area, and it's come through in submissions with even West Roads workers submitting, that is dangerous. The crossing that's proposed to go in there, slowing from 50 to 30 to stop probably makes sense if you're considering flashing lights, and then picking up speed to hopefully 100 to the valley and 80 through the next bit of the lake. So that stands out as an anomaly to me that needs fixing. Depends how much you want to annoy Charlie Cowie, but putting Pine Tree Road north to 40 probably is too slow. and maybe 50 would be a better speed.
I made a mistake there, that was actually 60.
60.
So to the south.
South's 40, and that's very, the tram is people respect the tram, they travel slowly through the tram, I think, and they would accept 40 as the speed. But if you're talking about what doesn't sit, that's what doesn't sit. So I hope that's a problem with the solution, a proposed solution as well.
60 is quite a controversial one, and yes, 70 would be more appropriate, and given that 70 is going to become available as an option that we can consider now, moving forward. So we will have to get permission to use it, but we can explore that avenue.
But if you're driving from town and you're 70 from Town Belt East to Shenandoah East, being that corner, the Domain, one of our favourite residents on the other side, ATC, of Westland, she's sitting at the table, that area 70 and then drop from there to 50, which is currently 70, through to just after my house, left and right. Then you pick up speed again on more open roads because it's
What are you
different.
suggesting, Latham, from Canary?
So if you're driving and when you're in my car, we go past Western Milk, it's 50. Then we currently had an 80k sign, reduce that to 70.
Yeah.
So not the 60 that's proposed, 70, and then you carry on 70 till Nigel's, Carol Jones, TC's area.
Yeah.
It's currently signposted at 70, drop to 50 there. It's a very residential area with a dense road off there, the Domain, cars, West Roads, and then the new crossing, the tram, the hotel, all that area, and you carry on 50, 50, 50, past gas, Harry Collett's there, carry on, still 50, until you start to climb again.
Yeah.
So you can turn off to the school, which would then be 30,
Yeah.
and you're still climbing, and then you can go to the valley or to the lake at 80.
And then you've got 40 round the other way.
40 around the tram, which I think is very accepted by the residents on the tram. They travel that.
How do you feel about that, Councillor?
Yeah, that's fine.
Councillor Neil, you comfortable with that?
Comfortable with that, yeah, really interesting, the number of submissions from West Roads and talking about near misses.
Yeah.
No, if that's not a warning sign.
Also, it was good to see the submissions that came up. Councillor Kennedy, pretty, probably don't, yeah. Councillor Cogan?
Yeah, no, I completely support the majority of the submitters and what they said. Because it really needs to be dropped back to that 50. I mean, I lived out there myself for 14 years and I know that stretch from, actually, to be fair, I think it should almost be coming back to 50k before you hit that where, you know, that sort of a dip down before you come on to the straight past the Canary rugby grounds. Because people that, and I walked around that a lot, they come flying around that dip, fair flying. So I think if we can reduce from 70 back to 70 instead of 80, and then, I'd probably like to consider dropping back to 50 before you hit the dip. And then because as you come up the rise of the dip, to then all of a sudden go to 50 and because you're very quickly upon the turn-off that goes down to Dents Road.
Carl, you see any practical problems with it?
No. So that basically what you're saying is we bring take the 70 from town to say Pine Tree Road, just past Pine Tree Road, and drop it through to 50 through community. So the other thing that we need to consider is Dents Road, which feeds off that. So I've suggested 40. There's been a bit of negative feedback on that. If we're doing 50 through community, we could consider 50 in that area, but they're only short. Cul-de-sac roads, you wouldn't.
50 is too. 50 is too fast.
40 might be, it would work better with.
Okay, we seem to have, sorry.
So just one question to think about. So as you're going out of town, it changes from 50 to 80. Would it be good to move that transition a wee bit further along so you're taking in McMullen's maybe service engineering, the church, yeah, further down a bit. Just a thought.
Very sensible comment.
Yeah.
You've got Prosser's Bush there, and the amount of cyclists and walkers and horsey people that pop out of the bush.
So Mullins with their trailers and people going in and out here all the time. Anyway.
Yeah, well, it's, it could be that we take that and look at shifting that out to just past service carriage. And then also, it's still not straight, but it's probably not a better location.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Jan, would you like to test the table with the resolution, so we vote on it?
So that's all the proposals with,
Yep.
is it with? No, we were going to 17, weren't we? For Canary Road, is that right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
So change the Canary Road from 60 to 70 and move that to just past service engineering. And other than that, all the proposals stay as proposed.
You're quite comfortable with that, Carl?
So that then what we were changing from Pine Tree Road.
Yep.
So,
To 50.
that's fine.
So, yeah.
Do I have a second?
Yes.
Aye. Jenny?
Councillor Cogan, all those in favour, please? Thank you. All those against? Thank you. Next one, please.
Let's go on to the, probably the most controversial section of the head. The Cockatoy Confederation Valley.
Thank you. I don't think we need to talk too much about this. Would a councillor like to move? Jenny?
Yes. I'd like to move
Status quo?
that we leave status quo throughout the valley.
Do I have a seconder?
Yep.
Councillor Davidson, thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Next one, please, Carl.
That's good. The Mara area, the only one we've got there is Century Place. So presently that's subdivision. We're just looking at putting a reasonable speed down there to 50, which is what the residents.
Is it 100 at present time?
That is 100.
Whereabouts?
Century Code at Command, at the junction there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds sensible.
Northern councillors, Jane, do you have a view?
Sounds like a good idea to me.
And councillor Cogan.
Absolutely, and I'll second that.
So we
Yep,
have
so
a
we'll move
mover.
for that, yeah.
Is there any other council which is to raise in? We have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour, please?
Yeah.
All those against? Thank you. Next one, Carl.
Okay, next on the list we have the Lake Community area. So we've got Dorothy Falls Road, Lake Canary Road, and Milltown Road. So the Dorothy Falls Road, proposing to reduce that to 40 kilometres an hour. I did look at the options of breaking that down into a couple of different sections. The first section being the lake to Dorothy Falls, to the farm start. We have another speed limit on the next section out to the Upper Cockatoy road where it means the Styx River. But there are still dimension width issues on both sections of the road. Probably worse on the other one because we've got tankers that will come through on the further section. So I did actually propose a 40k limit on that. The lake section itself, very narrow, very windy. It's a lot of people on foot, a lot of people on cycles. So anything generally over 40, if you've driven up yourself, is quite fast.
And the area within Lake Canary itself?
So the area within Lake Canary itself, so that takes into account
Am I jumping out of?
just trying to find it.
Golf links, yeah.
Lost that on the list. Doesn't look like we've consolidated. So we've got the Lake Canary Road, just around there. So we've got a mixture of that. So we've got the urban section in Canary Township itself, from the turn off through to basically where it starts into the 100k zone. So that's presently 70. We've looked at changing that to 60 to keep in line with what we were previously proposing. But given that we've just talked about 50 for Canary, so it might be appropriate to knock that down to 50 as part of that consideration. But then the Lake Canary Road, dropping from 100 down to 80 for the length out to where it drops down to 50 just at the lake.
Right, so, okay, thank you. Northern councils first, I think, Councillor Neil.
I would find a map much easier to follow that with, than the map. Yeah. With those drops that you just suggested, you had to refer to that. So it was down to 50, thank you, around the build-up area.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
keeping in account the 80k limit with ground hitch submission, talking about dropping it to Perenoi Jacks only and then raising it back up to 100.
yeah.
Talking back out to the lake was a suggestion. But again, dimensionally, the road's not much different beyond there either. There is still shared use with cyclists that don't use the cycleway. It does have
I think 80 is suitable
some
there.
geometric concerns there. I mean, people are taking boats out there, so they're not narrow vehicles.
Councillor Coe.
Yeah, I actually do support Grant Hinchcliffe's suggestion with the Canary Township to Rural Jacks at 80k, because it can be quite windy and it actually can be quite tight. Cars going either way as well. And it is quite particularly in the summertime, very busy piece of the road. And then from then onwards, 100, k as you're making your way out to Lake Canary. So, yeah, I support that.
Councillor Martin.
Not usually one for status quo, but the issue with the lake is that there's residents that live in the lake, which complicate the fact that they are competent drivers and they can drive that road quite different to someone that's taking a Maui camper van or something out there. So if we're thinking through their lens, they're very familiar with the road, they're very familiar where they need to slow down with the road. And it's just, unfortunately, there's such a distance for them to get to their residence. So I would be more in favour of maintaining the current speed limits around 100k to the lake, with that the safety considerations of the cycle trail. But with that in mind, isn't that coming off the road?
It is.
So if that's gone, and there still might be the odd cyclist, I agree, people who just say, oh, I'm going to bike the road. I'm not going to take the $1 million cycle trail. I'm going to stick to the road because I'm a road cyclist or whatever. Then they'll have to navigate around it. But I feel that wherever you find the boundary, whether it's Diane's house or whether it's Hiranui Jacks or whatever, from that point on, I think it needs to stay at 100 Ks. So that is my view, informed by the submissions.
Councillor Hartram.
Forgive me, I've forgotten, where's Hiranui Jacks? Whereabouts is it?
It's
About halfway to Lake Canary.
Past the water race.
Yeah.
Past the water race.
where the mayor is.
Yeah.
It's too far out to be travelling. It's no real
before
justice.
Butcher's Hill, you know where Butcher's Hill is?
Butcher's
Yeah, just before there.
Quite windy going out to the point where you get to Hiranui Jacks, and there's a few dips and narrowing of the road. So that's, yeah. I'd like to move that, stay at 80K up to, from the Canary Township. I think it's quite congested even through, there's a lot of housing out through that whole area, from the Forks onwards.
So
And
are
then,
we 50 to the Canary, through the Canary Township, is it?
oh yes, definitely,
Okay.
yes.
And then
Yeah, then go up to 80
from there to,
Hurunuri, around Hurunuri Jack's area, where it does actually, and he's correct, it does peter out to more of the straighter road, and then 100K from there.
any further discussion on it?
I find the worst part of that road, the big corner after Hiranui Jacks, where you have to slow down, and it's, that beautiful
Oh, you would anyhow.
grove that
You would anyhow.
you would anyhow, but that, to me, that's like the pinch point in the whole road. Otherwise, it's I don't know, maybe I'm weird, but I find it like such a easy road to drive. I don't see the dips and stuff that Jenny does. Maybe we're different people. You're different drivers.
I might be a more cautious.
That's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah, it's 100K, 50, 80, 100.
Carl, you follow that through? Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against? And we have 3 against, Councillor Martin, Councillor Neal and Councillor Hartram. Next one, thanks, Carl.
Next one on the list, the Okarito Road.
Well, I guess there's only one person we should be asking about that. Councillor Kennedy, your view?
I
Do it twice a day?
think 60 is too slow, personally. I'd be happy for a reduction to 80 kilometres per hour, however, that's my view.
Councillor Hartram.
I'd agree with Councillor Kennedy, 60 is a bit on the slow side, but
You have someone else with serious career interest, Councillor Neal.
I go that road 3 or 4 times a day, or 4 times a day for many years. Yeah, I'd probably go with 80. Some of the local residents that used to go off the road at regular intervals no longer live there, so 80's probably okay. And I think a lot of the locals actually go a lot slower than that, especially at night anyway, and will continue to do so.
So I have a mover. So Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Hartram, all those in favour, please.
All right.
Those against? Next one, thanks, Carl.
Next we head to Remu. So we have the Woodstock Remu Road, basically from the Remu Township through to where it links on State Highway 6 again. Looking at 80 kilometres an hour on that, so that's a continuation of what the speed limit is up to and through the Remu Township presently. For the remainder, that goes through past the treetop walkway on that narrow section through the bush, through Mandanelli. The other one on that was the Sevens Terrace Road, placed in at Beauty. That was a request from the residents along there, so that was part of the original requests from before we did the speed limit trial, so we're asking for a reduction on that road. There's a very narrow, basically one main sealed road, which merges out to an unsealed road, which links into the forestry. Beyond that, but it isn't wide.
So for clarification, Canary Bridge through to the other side of the treetop walkway?
Presently, Canary Bridge through to the south side of Remu is 80, and then beyond that it's 100. So it's that section from the south side of Remu to the state highway that we're looking to change it to 80.
Makes it consistent all the way.
Makes it consistent.
What percentage of people on Sevens Terrace Road do you think wanted it to drop right down to 30? Quite a large percentage, or?
Off the top of was quite a while ago now. I think it was a petition came in.
Okay, so it's quite strong.
So it was quite strong support.
Definitely, yeah, thank you.
Any other discussion on that particular item, councillors?
The bridge, does that get captured in this? The main bridge, the Canary Bridge.
Too sure. So I think that we'll need to add that.
Yeah, just wondering with the 50 in the township, the bikes, the bridge, the bridge is a great bridge, it's a fantastic asset, but it doesn't have a clip on, it doesn't have anywhere for pedestrians or cyclists to go. So if you're doing 80 across that bridge, and then you hit a 50, can you do, what can we do to fix that? Can we maybe take the 50 to the other side of the bridge to connect with Arthur's Town's 80 or?
Because it is narrow too, that bridge.
In the lead-in time of looking in that funny, what are those bubble mirrors? Those, that funny bubble mirror thing.
I'm sure we can include that section and just continuity.
Okay, so one of the, the Northern Riding councillors are quite happy to move that. It's in the North Riding.
I'm more than happy to move on.
You're at, got to vote for you.
All those in favour, please. Thank you. Those against? Thanks, Carl. Next one.
Next one, Alice, is south side. So if we start at the top and look at the Dares Road, which is just that link road unsealed between Ringu and Takatai. So looking at 60 on that.
Councillors, any views on it?
Sorry, I just want to, because I don't know it very well, we talk about these three roads, the submitters. Which are the three roads they were talking about? They wanted them at 60?
So they were talking about Takatai Road and
Golf
Course Road.
Or was it just those two?
It was those two,
Yeah.
and the other part of the triangle
Not a deer
is
thing.
state highway.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So any issues with the Deers Road? It's a gravel road, goes all the way through.
Got a lot of big trucks on it, and I know certainly riding horses down there is pretty scary.
For the truck riders.
Absolutely. Good way to me.
So we can move to the next one.
Yep, and move to the next one. So Arthur's Town Road.
What a
So presently it's got, it does have an 80k zone in it, but the section, it was about half of it that's 80k's and half of it's 100k's. So the 80k section is from the Woodstock Greenwood Road west.
Yep.
It's about roughly halfway where it changes for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why it was set there, but basically proposed to extend that all the way out to the state highway 60, so the full length becomes 80k.
Anyone see any issues with that? Consistency?
It's all good.
Okay, next one, Carol.
Just on there we have Craig Road, which feeds off the Arthur's Town Road, and Southernwood Road, looking at 50 on both of those. Those are reasonably recent developed areas.
What's Craig?
Craig Road.
It's
I was just about to ask that question.
nursery.
Right next,
Craig Road's just past the nursery.
Oh, okay.
Are they sealed or unsealed, those roads?
sealed.
It's a big wide road, but it's really short.
Right.
Yeah, very
It'd be hard pressed to get up to 100.
I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So any issues with those two recommendations? Because we'll bundle these together into one resolution.
My only question would be, would 60 be more consistent with other country roads? Or,
Yeah.
I mean, I think 50 is fine as well.
Yeah, we could consider 60. But they're not particularly long or wide roads, so you're more likely to do it.
They're more likely by slow.
Southernwood Road services two homes.
Pardon?
Two homes.
Yes.
We're not talking about a state highway or it'll generally be the residents travelling up there that'll be driving to the conditions anyway, so.
I wonder whether perhaps we save a couple of signs and just leave it all as 80 if no one's going to speed in there anyway. Just kind of putting that out there.
It's consistency.
Yeah, because then it's the sealed road at 80. Like if you're not going to drive 80, then that's fine.
Right, so that's a valid consideration.
So let's bundle those 5 into one, and can I get a movement?
So which 5 are you talking about?
Carl, council, I forgot.
So at this stage, we're looking at, Southern Road, Southernwood Road, Craig Road, Harperstown Road, and Adair's Road. We do take it to our goal.
So are we going to look at 60 or 80 for Adair's Road?
60.
60 for Adair's.
60 for Adair's and 80 for the others.
What is the name of that road? Is it Adair Road or Adair's Road?
Oh, I knew it was a deer's road.
Really cool.
Is it? We just keep,
Ideas, isn't it?
well, you know, when we go to Gazette it, what's it actually called?
AD,
Thank you.
Sure, Carl will check that. Now, do we have a movement for that bundle? Councillor Cogan, do we have a second? Pretty uncontroversial. Councillor Hartshorn, those in favour, please. And those against? Thank you. Next one.
So lastly, we have Takatai and Golf Links Road. So those were proposed at 80, but given the feedback that we've had, 60 might be something that we want to consider for those 2 roads.
I lived down at South Spit
It
for a
was,
while, and 60 I think would be great.
it was excellent, wasn't it? You know,
Definitely.
it was really good. You know, they're in the northern riding, I think. What do you reckon, Jenny?
Yeah, I would actually like to move that both of them are actually changed back to 60 kilometres. Yeah, their submissions were very relevant.
And a second, Jane, you happy to support that? And some discussion.
I just know a chap that lives at Camp Street at Canary, and he plays golf on a regular basis. He's going to take quite a bit of time to get the golf now, that's all.
19 seconds.
No, Camp Street at Canary is a 30k.
Then he's 50.
That's all good. All good, guys.
We have a mover and a seconder, and all those in favour, please raise your hands. And those against? Thank you very much. And the next ones?
I think that's up, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's it, yeah.
It's not Cogan's Road.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
We saved that one.
Go right up, back up the top, is that?
that's a brick.
Cogan's Road, Mertons Road, Providence Drive.
We've already done that.
Yeah,
That was
Yeah, yeah.
60.
yeah.
Oh, we did too. Oh,
You just want to do it again.
I wanted to be able to
Come up with.
while I'm at it.
Still
There's
on
a
street.
Cogan's Road sign's missing on the main highway.
Carl, do we have any more?
That's from Jane, Jenny Mackie, which is quite good.
Councillors, is there anything we've missed here that you want to see?
I think what would be really helpful when we do the staff report is to have maps, like a map of Hokitika with the lines all drawn, and then they go out with enough lead-in time before we adopt them at the meeting, because we've got till December, so people can visually see how this may impact their life, you know, so we still, even though we're resolving things today, we haven't actually adopted the register until December, and we can, you know, not consult, but we can, you know, see, right, this is actually what these maps look like, particularly for Southwestern and stuff where they weren't really represented today with giving submissions.
There is one that we haven't considered,
Tucker's Flat Road.
Milltown Road, actually, and the Outhouse Road, so 2. So if we look at Milltown Road, presently 100 k's, unsealed road, shared with the cycle lane. So the proposal there was 60. Consistent with what we
Yeah.
It's really, it's quite narrow, isn't it? Yeah.
I'll move that.
Yeah.
Moved by Councillor Kennedy, thank you, Ryan. Seconded by Councillor Davidson. Those in favour, please raise your hand.
Yep.
Those against? Thank you. And the next one?
The last one is How Road. So How Road is, some locals call it Tucker's Flat Road, but it is How Road. So that feeds off the Lake Canary Road and intersects with Blue Spur Road at the top of the hill. That section is unsealed and 100 k's. So the proposal there is to make that 60.
And I'll move that.
Close it.
Yeah, I move that that needs to go to 60K.
That's my shortcut home.
So there is room for a wee bit of changing what was in the consultation document as regards speeds. Is there not also as regards where that change takes place, because there were several submitters about having this end of How Road also slowed down? Is there no way that can be included? As part of this?
Well, this end of How Road presently is 70, the civil section. So from the town boundary out, it's 70.
I have a view there, Jane. I believe that we have a subdivision full of kids at the top. We've got the SPCA, we've got RDA, we've got the industrial area there, and I believe it's an extension of town. And I think it should be 50, right to the top of the hill.
I'll support that. So can we do it as part of this process?
We haven't consulted on that piece, it'll be quite tricky.
Yeah, just on that, one of the issues we have is because we're specified between address points for Bogo Road. What we could have is people coming back who haven't participated in the consultation process and then feel that we've made the decision without them being aware that they were in fact be parties. So all we can refer to, which Carl can follow, is keeping those in mind for future round of consultation. And there's no reason why that can't happen sometime next year.
Well, can we not, taking that feedback on board, can we not at least deal with the entrance to Racecourse Terraces back to town as an extension of because we've just changed Racecourse Terraces to 50. And so you're going to come down the hill, pick up to 70, and then if you turn up to Racecourse Terrace, back up to 50. So it's potentially a safety matter just for fixing that 300-400 metres. You know, forget about going up the hill for now, address that in the future, but can we deal with that SPCA? We're an affected party. We own the right-hand side of the road if we're going out of town, so I don't think council's going to object. RDA, SPCA, Deep Smith, you know, all the engineering, Western Milk.
I think that's a solution indeed. Let's vote on it and give it to Carl to sort out. So from the proposition is that from the bottom of Racecourse Terrace, the subdivision.
Sorry,
from the bottom of Racecourse, where the subdivision comes down, hits How Road, and coming into town, joining up with the town, remains at the same speed as Hampton Street, which is 50k. It is a significant safety issue in my mind.
We can't include a footpath alongside the road there too, can we?
Another meeting.
Would you like for
Another forum? Oh, absolutely.
For cycles and horses.
Well, you're just talking about the amount of people that are up there,
There's a lot of people.
and there's no access.
Yeah.
That's all.
Probably another meeting.
Okay, sure, another forum.
But a very good point, just the same. So we have a mover. We have a seconder.
Yep.
Jane and Nathan, thank you. Those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Do we have anything else, Carl?
Sorry, it's through the chair, just to raise the issue, what did we resolve around the motor camp on the spot area there? Because that is also that's
presently a 50k zone.
Yes.
So speed in that area is probably something else that we need to consider.
Yeah, how can...
Other means of reducing the speed.
Yeah, That does, I fully support Colleen that presented on that today. Driving out that way also daily myself,
There are some of our roads that I'm considering flush mediums down the middle, which will make the lanes narrower, which does have some effect on speed. There's some other considerations we need to take into account with regards to those.
And I didn't at all think that was a bad idea around those crossings with that slight sort of a hump in the road too.
We need to discuss physical barriers like that with Western Wood Products
Okay.
and surface engineering. I have no idea.
Not ideal on main roads,
Okay.
daily transport.
We need to be aware of issues that arise.
Yeah, I guess I just want to factor in that is an area of real concern with the thoroughfare going from the dairy across the, back and forwards.
It's down there at 50 now, though, isn't it? Right out.
Yeah, but they're not doing that's what she was saying, there's just not enough, like going out of town, they're doing over 50 and coming into town, even when they're hitting there, they're doing over 50.
Moving that 50k transition back that
At one
way
time.
might help with it as well.
Yeah.
So
Who put the camera?
We did.
That was a council one.
So is that a consented compliant pedestrian crossing? Because when we talked about that with the submitters, they said, oh, well, yes, but we've had nothing to do with it, which made me go, okay, that's unusual. But why doesn't it have diamonds on the road? Why doesn't it say pedestrian, why doesn't it have signage that says pedestrian crossing?
I think it's got one sign, one diamond, but we're just redoing
I'll make the diamonds.
back.
Bit tight, Jim, we're short of diamonds.
Yeah, we know what they mean now.
We do.
Put some crystals down instead, but like those themes came through quite clearly, like traffic calming solutions, not just speed limits. So like they talk about Richmond, but Rotorua was another great example of like they elevated all of their roundabouts. So you actually drive up to the roundabouts through the CBD and things like that. That'd be really good to factor into the master planning work that we're doing. And around schools, consistency across the district around the schools with pedestrian crossings and lights. They've asked for them in the southwestern communities. Kamara's asked for theirs to be fixed. There's other things that we need to consider as part of the LTP, I think, to deal with the speed issues and the safety issues.
Well, I think we're probably at the end. The consistency message raised by Councillor Kennedy early on certainly helped me during the meeting, I would say. And I really appreciate the input, the presenters, the submitters did a great job. The ones from out the valley, they were powerful submissions. I'd like to thank the staff. Carl, thank you for the work so far. Look forward to the second round and to the staff, well done. And if there is nothing else, councillors, I'll formally declare the meeting closed at 1:04. Thank you very much. To those watching,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay.